We'll start again. Following on from the last council meeting, when the imam from the Lichfield Mosque said a prayer before the start of the meeting, tonight's minister needs no introduction because it is the Reverend Ian Later, Sheriff of Lichfield, and I would like to welcome Ian. Thank you.
We offer to you, O Lord, the troubles of this day. Lay down our burdens at your feet. Forgive our sins and give us your peace. I'm going to read from Psalm 8 this evening, a psalm that reminds us in some ways we are totally in. But nonetheless, God has called us to help him in managing. This is from a contemporary version called The Message. God, brilliant Lord, yours is a household name. Nursing infants gurgle choruses about you, and toddlers shout songs of joy. I look up at your macro sky, dark and enormous, your handmade sky jewellery, moon and stars mounted in their center. Then I look at my micro self and wonder, why do you bother with us? Why take a second look our way? Yet we've so narrowly missed being gods, bright with Eden's dawn light. You put us in charge of your handcrafted world, repeated to us your creation, made us stewards of sheep and cattle, even animals out in the wild, birds flying and fish swimming, whales singing in the sea and the ocean. God, brilliant Lord, your name echoes around the world. Let us pray. Almighty God, creator, redeemer, and sustainer, we thank you for all that you have provided for us, the good things that resource our daily lives, the relative peace we enjoy, and the advantages of living in a time when there seems to be so much uncertainty, so many people. We pray for the good and wise governance, for a sense of hope. In our own district, help us to trust in you and look for your help, as well as supporting and caring for one another. Loving God, we pray for this meeting here tonight. May all who participate do so with wisdom and integrity. May the decisions that are made be made with justice and equity for the benefit of all who live and work in this district. We ask it in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Reverend Later. Please be seated. Do we have any apologies for absence? Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And from Councillor Leona Lung, who was taken ill today.
Item 2. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. Should there be any discussion or debate on the proposed joint venture for the nursery? My sister-in-law is one of the directors of the company that's proposed happening, so I'd like to be excused whilst that's discussed, should that occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Item 3. To receive the returning officer's certificate of election of district councillor and report of declaration of acceptance of office.
Thank you, Chair. I, Simon Fletcher, returning officer, hereby certify that Councillor Richard Stevenson was duly elected to the district ward of Olrawas and Fradley and has signed the declaration of acceptance of office.
Councillor Pullen.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to be the very first to congratulate Councillor Richard Stevenson on taking the seat here at Lichfield District Council. I think anyone who knows Richard, and Richard has played a variety of prominent roles in our community for many, many years now. Anybody knows that Richard is a dedicated public servant, and I'm sure that he'll bring a huge amount of value to this chamber, both here in debates and outside. And congratulations, Stevenson. I'm really glad to.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. Councillor.
Thanks, Chairman. Can I be the second to congratulate Councillor Stevenson on his election victory? It's good to see you here. I suppose I could say that Burnford North's loss is Aldous and Bradley's gain, but I wish you well in the time that you've got left for this council. Thank you.
Chairman, could I thank you and Councillor Woodward and Councillor Pullen for their very warm welcome. To all the staff of the council who've helped me since the new council, have all been very kind to me and very, very efficient. I have to say, helped me through some of the IT problems, which I'm not always great with. It's a real honour to have been elected by the residents of the beautiful villages of Ollywoss and Bradley, which are undoubtedly the best places to live. District next, of course. You may be interested to know the first time I stood for election to Lichfield District Council was exactly 30 years ago, when I achieved the magnificent total of 172 votes in Summerfield. So while it's fair to say my political career hasn't exactly been meteoric, perseverance does seem to have been paid off in the end. But having finally made it here, as Councillor Woodward has just reminded me, after 3 decades of trying, it is perhaps a little disheartening to discover I've joined a council that's just about to be abolished. On a more serious note, in the course of speaking to hundreds of my friends and neighbours on their doorsteps, I've been reminded about how much goodwill there is across our community. I know that people from all political backgrounds, we even did find a couple of Conservatives, supported me. I therefore look forward to working in a spirit of genuine cooperation with councillors from all sides of the chamber to do our very best, to continue to do our very best for Lichfield, Burntwood, and of course, the villagers.
Sorry, my hand went up a little too slow, but I would also like to add my congratulations to Councillor Stephen. Delighted to see him here, and I hope that he will continue to work in this collegiate fashion. Yeah, thank you.
Hope is that thank you. I see no raised hands, so the minutes are approved, subject to the amendment made. Item 5. Chair's announcements. Well, the visits that I and my vice chair have made are all listed, so I don't think I need to mention that. But there's one thing I would like to mention, and I asked Mr. Hooper about this because you may not think it's a chair's announcement, but yesterday, Sunday was the chair's civic service, and on Monday I was at Staffordshire County Council for the opening session of the Michaelmas High Court, and all the chain gang were there. And I would just like to say that a lot of the chain gang came up and said, I would just like to say your civic service was the best of all of them. And the council chamber was the ideal venue. And also the buffet was fantastic. Now, I don't say that for self-aggrandizement, because all I do is turn up when, where, and at the time that Leslie tells me. Leslie is the one that was responsible for organising the whole of that civic service. So I asked Mr. Hooper about this and said, can we make a mention in the minutes of the service that Leslie provided? She's absolutely wonderful. But also, I would like to add that she had 2 volunteers on the Friday and the Sunday, Sinead at the back and Rihanna. And thank you to both of you for the hard work you put in. And I think also it would be nice if we could mention them in the minutes. So, if we could now move on to item 6, report of the leader of the council on cabinet decisions. Councillor Pullen, would you like to submit your report?
I would, thank you, Chair. And can I congratulate you, Chair, also on a successful civic service, which many of us attended over the weekend. And it was good. I couldn't possibly call them the chain gang. That is your prerogative. But it was fantastic to see civic heads from our neighbouring authorities join us here. But what I think was even more heartening to see were representatives from your chosen charity, Liberty Jamboree, and to see representatives from Plastic Charity here, who, of course, you're raising money for this year, was wonderful. And I know the good work that they do in this district and beyond is appreciated by many of them. Chairman, I'd like to submit my report on cabinet decisions from the meeting on the 8th of September and cabinet member decisions for noting well. Cabinet meeting. I'll take them one by one, Chair, and happy to take any questions that they arise. So from Cabinet, 8th of September, number 1 is the LWM annual report 24-25. Number 2, future delivery of internal audit. Number
Yeah, if I can, Chair, just whilst we're talking about the future delivery of internal audit, could I take this opportunity to thank our outgoing head of internal audit, Rebecca Neal. During my time as audit chair, I received some plaudits for the work that I did. Most of that is down to the help that I got from Rebecca in the way that she carried out her role. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, my apologies for having a slight senior moment. Councillor Pullen.
Thank you, Chair. Number 3, procurement strategy 2025 to 2029.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Chair. Sorry, I'm feeling a bit like the former councillor for Lichfield, for Mr. Councillor Robertson. While I commend the proactive measurement having just dropped to 3% local procurement in 24-25, we've got a lot of work to do on procurement policy. One of the things that came out of the cabinet meeting, the discussions, suggest that we've got a lot of work to do in not just reaching local businesses, but identifying local businesses that may wish to work with us. Can I ask, as part of this policy, have we yet spoken to local businesses about the council's bid to increase its local procurement? Have we started holding the procurement briefing sessions that are mentioned in the policy? And if not, how advanced is the planning for those sessions? Thank you.
First, Councillor Rob Strachan on this, as that's his portfolio.
Thank you, Chair. Some of this, Councillor Taylor, is going to be, I will speak to the procurement team and find out exactly where we are up to date on that. In terms of speaking to local businesses, I know that has started and that is ongoing. In terms of the local briefing sessions, I don't believe they have officially started yet, but I will give you a definite response. But if I can take the opportunity, comment on how I feel like procurement in this council actually is booming, and while the local stats have indeed fallen from 12% to 3%, That's actually a slightly false number, largely because a lot of the businesses that we work with don't tell us where their workforce come from necessarily, because we have spoken to a national company, but yet they've secured labour and resource from Lichfield and from Burntwood and across. And that is not reflected in our statistic, and I'd like to find a way to get it in there. But secondly, it would be remiss of me to stand up on a procurement question without mentioning the fact that our procurement team have in fact recently been nominated for 2 national awards at the Public Finance Awards and the Social Value Awards, which I intend to attend next week, for their extremely efficient and sector-leading work on social value and procurement, particularly marked by the coordinate works over at the former multi-storey car park site, but also on the new leisure centre, where we're seeing incredible value added to this economy and to this local this locality by the efforts of our procurement team working closely with providers. And so I think it's slightly unfair to characterise procurement in this council as failing, but there is certainly a road to go on in terms of working with local business.
Councillor Cullen.
Thank you. Number 4, Money Matters 25-26.
Thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Yes, thank you. I just want to talk to the recommendations at 4.5, and in particular the one about the additional funding for the Birmingham Road site. That is good to see. That is good to.
Sorry, Chair, to intervene on Councillor Ray. This forms a substantive part of my paper later in the meeting, and it's perhaps better discussed at that.
I think if I can continue with my question. So to the leader, it's good to see that that funding is coming forward, because it's important that we progress with the Birmingham Road site. The recent conversations I've had with residents about the Birmingham Road site is that residents do not like the plans. They find them unimaginative, too much housing. There's not a solution yet for the bus station. There's not enough public open space. And what I would just ask the leader, as we go forward with developing the rest of the Birmingham Road site, that he will listen to residents and be open-minded about the plans for this key development in the middle of our city.
I find it astonishing that a design code that was put together with thousands of residents across the district that fed directly into creating a very specific design code now be plated by council in such a way. Create Streets, who are an internationally renowned not-for-profit organisation that help develop design codes, were brought in. Frankly, we have a brownfield site opposite a train station on the main entrance to Lichfield. The one thing that I don't think Lichfield is short of is green open space. And I would say, and I'll say it here in public, leaving that open for green space on a brownfield site opposite a train means that we will have to build houses somewhere else on green open space in this. That's not something I want. If we're looking for green open space in Lichfield city centre, we've got it. It's there. Why would we not take the time and energy that we have done already to consult with residents, thousands of them, who have come up with a design code, and then build within a tolerance as many houses as we can on that site, to ensure that people who want to have city centre living, who want to be close to train stations, who want to be able to work and spend their money in the city centre, can do so. I would absolutely and outrightly reject any claims that it's uninnovative. I know you did a fantastic press release which used a schematic which showed blocks of buildings. That is not what residents will see when they enter the city. In fact, you'll have seen, well, you may not have seen, but Lichfield Gateway, the website for Lichfield Gateway was promoted today by CB Collier, who are the developers. That shows the architecture that's being brought to life on that site. I do feel, Councillor Ray, that perhaps any statements of large numbers of residents being anti is disingenuous. Of course, I will remain open-minded about what we do with the future of that site. We want a mixed-use site. We want to make sure that it's somewhere pleasant for people to live. But let's not underplay the huge amount of work and effort that's been undertaken by members from across this chamber in creating something that our residents can.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not old enough to remember when Councillor Ray was promoting housing on the Birmingham Road site, and he seems to have changed his mind. But if he opened his imagination to what can happen within the budget, already roadside. It will see what huge is. But I don't doubt that numerous members within this chamber don't see the Birmingham roadside as having the level of interest and importance that Councillor Bray seems obsessed with. I want to see development on that to realise the capital value in order to fund across in Burntwood. But the particular point I wanted to raise is the last bullet point under 4.5, the transfer of the 3-year locality fund budget from revenue, which I've got absolutely no objection. The email this afternoon about how that fund is going to be going to have some input in. What disappoints me though is that that fund wouldn't have been there had it not been for I and my Labour colleague voting the idea and following on from the ward task force conversations. And I'm really disappointed that neither I nor any of my shadow cabinet colleagues were involved in the private discussions about the new clean and green proposal. I've raised this with Councillor Council, and I really am quite disappointed that having set out which can already acknowledged, there was no collegiality in the development of these proposals, and I think that's unfortunate because it isn't just the Conservative group who have ideas about how ward funding should be spent, but it would be better, I think, to use the interests and ideas and views include. Well, so I hope it won't happen too often. Leader, it does seem to be a bit of a pattern that now cabinet members are not consulting with shadow cabinet members in the way they did previously. I hope that's a blip and we'll return to that different effect.
Councillor Pullen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On to cabinet member decisions. Number 5, temporary accommodation policies. Number 6.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to item 5. And again, as I've done before at this council, I'd like to commend the Cabinet pushing forward with these temporary accommodation policies. It's very important that we get more genuinely affordable housing across the district. But also, as I'm standing, like to ask the leader or perhaps the portfolio holder when we'll be spending the £2 million that the council agreed to spend back in February, I think it was, and a Labour initiative. And I'm hoping again that Labour will get due credit when that spending takes place, because it wouldn't have been there without Labour pushing that forward. So I'd like to know when that's happening, please.
Councillor Wallens.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask, why is the company called West Midlands rather than Staffordshire? Is LDC looking too far towards Birmingham rather than focusing on its local area? Thank you.
Councillor Pullen.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take Councillor Wallens' question first. West Midlands, as well as being a area locally, is also a region. And we are in the West Midlands region. So is Staffordshire, so is Shropshire. We are in the West Midlands region, which is why it's called West Midlands. Back to the more substantive question, Councillor Ball, which is not a phrase I ever thought I'd use. Look, and just a slight clarification, just to make sure we're on track. This isn't about affordable housing at the moment. It's about temporary accommodation. This is ensuring that families or individuals and families across the district who perhaps would otherwise end up in bed and breakfast, typically much further away from the places of work, from the places of school. We want to be able to ensure that we've got our own stock of temporary accommodation, which is properly in and amongst our community. That means people can stay closer to where they work. It can particularly if they have children in the household, the children going to their local school without too much impediment. That money is being spent as we speak, and I say being spent. We have several properties under offer, so we're about 2 million. Hopefully those offers are accepted. So that is fully underway at the moment. And of course, let's ensure that people get the right credit for it. Of course, this is a policy that was started a long time ago, 2019, 2020, when we first started this policy. Of course, that's been aided by colleagues from right across this chamber. But critically, and regardless of who gets the credit, the most important thing that we're serving the families of our district, I think, which policy. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ray.
Yeah, I think Councillor Pullins really sort of picked up the point, because it was just about the temporary accommodation budget. I'm glad to hear the response. This has been a policy that's been successfully implemented by the council, and therefore I'm glad to hear that there is a specific action plan to get the slippage. I think it's about 1.74 million spent, so that we can get that much needed temporary accommodation needed, as it is a priority for many people in our community.
Councillor Pullen.
Just as a point of clarity on that, we've spent the first 2 million. That's already gone. That was out the door a while back. This is the second tranche of 2 million. So we've made a heck of a lot of progress on it. Suppose I could stay standing up, couldn't I? Number 6, joint waste business plan. Number 7, allocation of section 106 financial contributions, Stitchbrook Leisure Centre. Number
Councillor Hughes. Okay, Ashton, sorry.
Thank you. A question about information. Items 7 and 11. It looks as though about 400k of S106 is being diverted to the leisure centre. Is this extra funding to pay for additional unplanned spending, or is this part of the original estimate cost?
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. No, it is not for any unplanned expenditure. It was always envisaged from day one that we would use 106 as part of the plan towards that. So that was how the budget was constructed around that, knowing that.
Councillor Wallens.
Cheers, thank you, Chair. Would you agree that you missed key opportunities to prioritise extending the bus services whilst the planning application was in the works?
As bus services are responsible of the county council, upon which Councillor Wallens sits, then perhaps that would be a question for his colleagues at the county council rather than here at the district council.
Councillor Pullen.
Back with me. Thank you, Chair. Number 8, allocation of section 106 financial contributions, historical information boards at St John's Grange, Lichfield. Number 9, approval to award disabled facilities grant framework. Number 10, contact centre system contract award. Number 11, land off Hayend Lane, Fradley, indoor sports contribution allocation. Number 12, land adjacent to 58 and 64 Cedar Close, Burntwood. Number 10, community safety strategy. Number 14, Councillor Pullen's new glasses. Gosh, getting old.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. On community safety strategy, I've been making inquiries over the past few weeks about the progress of our proposal, unanimous across the council, on an action of fight the best against women and girls. And I'm really pleased to know that a meeting has taken place today. Violence Against Women and Girls champion Councillor Coe, and that's progressing nicely. So congratulations on that. The one issue I'm concerned about, continually concerned about in terms of community safety, I think lots of other councils and certainly lots of residents, about police cover. I'd ask through the leader if the cabinet member, community engagement and different title now, public enforcement or best officer, make sure that all members know of changes in their area. Certainly in Burntwood, we're getting very confused about the numbers of.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing against either of these items, but on 13 and 14, could we at least address the typing out cabinet member? There's cabinet member or cabinet member.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. In reverse order, I do understand the confusion in terms of the change of names. There is obviously a paper coming further on to that today that will confirm that there is the title will be Community and Public Protection, but there has been a crossover, and I do apologise for the confusion. The confusion doesn't just lie here; it confuses myself at times as well where I am. I do believe, and I would like to check, but I do know that when the PCSOs were reassigned, that I did send out some information to full members of council and also suggested if there were any concerns there to let me know. I've certainly picked up concerns, certainly from within my ward and my two parishes, in terms of the stretch that certain in the rurals are getting from a limited number of PCSOs. So it is something that is of concern, and I have obviously engaged that with the commander, and the commander being Chief Inspector Stuart Coleman. He now has the responsibility of Lichfield District and Tamworth, but the Inspector Melissa Byrne is solely Lichfield District. So there have been changes. I think we've got to monitor, and it's for us to be the diligent ones to understand within our community. Is our communications with the PCSOs working, etc.? That means that we're getting that kind of level of service. He is aware of that. But I suppose like any restructuring, we have to realise that we've got to give a go, but he's already had a warning shot in terms of concerns from this council. I hope that does provide that assurance.
Thank you, Chair. Safeguarding annual report and policy. Number 15, Shenstone Neighbourhood Plan Adoption. Number 16, award of contract for paddle tennis, Beacon Park.
Councillor Brooker.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, paddle tennis, the gift that keeps giving. Thank you. So we recall conversations about paddle tennis. And I recall querying in previous budgets the allocation of £400,000 as budget to paddle tennis, of which I was given the assurance that it was actually only 300. And if we look at agenda item 13, Appendix A, we will see that against paddle tennis, it's allocated £200,000, and then there are lines with 44,602, nowhere near what your cabinet has decided and decisions to allocate a contract for 448,290. So how come we can have discussions in here? We can have reassurances that the value is not quite that, don't worry about it, but then you make the decision anyway to exceed that value that you gave us in previous councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Booker. I'll need to get back to you on the specifics of that. Obviously, any expenditure over 150,000, and variance of that would need. Let me get back to you in writing.
Councillor Woodward.
Point of order, if I may. We've just read the minutes of the previous meeting when I'd asked a question about the action that arise from council. If all members in responses to So in a response to Booker, good for all members.
Support.
Yeah, entirely agree. Thank you, Councillor Woodward. On to number 17, the contract award for garden waste stickers. Number 18, revenues and benefits software cloud-based contract. Number 19, the internal audit contract award. Number haven't said it yet. Number 21, establish 20 Greenway project.
Ennis.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's great to see that the Greenway project is finally signed of that contract and it's heading in the right direction, which I think is absolutely brilliant. The linkage of this has always been the linkage between Lichfield and Chasewater. That's always been the linkage. So the linkage is better between Lichfield and Brownhills than it is between Lichfield and Chasewater. I just want to ask for some clarity that is there going to be a next phase to this, a phase that actually gives true linkage to Burntwood and Chasewater? At the moment, it's classed as walking. I wouldn't want to walk down there with a wheelchair. I wouldn't want to walk down there with a pushchair. I'd be really ominous walking down there with small children. The track that's down there at the moment that links to this Greenway is not the safest track. So can I ask, is there going to be another phase that is going to look at this and make sure the linkage between Burntwood, as it's always been sold, is actually going to be a true linkage?
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. And I'd say that it already is a true linkage in terms of walking, so that there's walk from Lichfield to through Chasewater. We've put the staircase in place there, so you can use the remaining of the canal section to take you through Chasewater. It was always been envisaged, certainly in my mind, that this will be a gradual iteration improvement over years. So the brilliant work back the track have done between Pelson and Brownhill started off as a bit of a boggy railway track. Eventually that was upgraded so that people could walk on it just about. And now, of course, Sus Trans are doing some brilliant work there to be able to tarmac for all. That's taken a number of years. It's taken a lot of funding. It's taken a lot of hard work and by various people. I see this as the first iteration. It's opened it up. It means people can walk. It means people can use it. There will no doubt be subsequent to this.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm following on from that, please. I just wonder how narrow is the towpath on that last link to Chasewater from the Greenway? He's actually seen that himself, the leader. And the other one is about the insurance. Now, if you can't get insurance, usually that means the risk is too high for anybody to want to insure. This may not be the case here, but it is a problem. We may have solved it by now, but you hadn't when I read the reports. So can I ask what the amount of money will be left in reserves, and can you confirm that if it's in reserves, it means it can't be used for anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. I have not been down and seen the towpath, no, but I know plenty of people who have. In terms of the insurance issue, obviously that was one of the challenges that we needed to overcome. We brought in an independent insurance specialist to help us manage that, the negotiations with our insurers. That has now been settled so that we have adequate protection in place. That's there. We haven't set aside a specific reserve for this, although we have ensured that a sum of around £30,000 set aside each year for inspection. On to number 21, establishment of a shareholder advisory group. Number 22.
Councillor Ashton, I've got it right this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who is delighted by the fact that members now have some means of input into the board of LWM. A bit of a roundabout channel, and I hope it's not going to just be talking shop. I'm also delighted the establishment is future-proofed in that future entities controlled by the council will also be served by this. And I hope that LWM board will consider members' opinions as passed through the group and the member shareholder. Is it unrealistic to hope that the group may also work in the other direction. In other words, LWM information may be passed through the group to members.
Councillor Ashton, I thought you were going to say you were delighted I had this time got your name correct.
Well, I am delighted as the.
My apologies for
Thank
the
you very
other two. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Councillor Ashton. Comments on that will provide a more robust way of ensuring a hand on the rudder, a very gentle hand on the rudder. On that, they will be advising the shareholder representative directly rather than the board itself. How information flows between them, I think, will be down to the individual concerns. But certainly, I think this is a step forward in making sure that the whole of council certainly feel they've got an input organisation forward. If I carry on, Chair, on to number 22, the revocation of an air quality management area.
Yeah.
Councillor Ray.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Pullen. So this relates to Muckley Corner and an improved clean air environment at Muckley Corner. So that is good news. I do note that since we last met as a council, the Conservative Party and the Reform Party have announced scrapping of various environmental policies and environmental standards. Reform UK on Staffordshire County Council have revoked the climate change emergency policy of that council. These are backward steps. But focusing on this council, will the leader agree that protecting our environment and our clean air, it makes a real difference to our residents and their lives and their health? And can he confirm that despite his party's environmental policies, this council remains fully committed to protecting the environment for our residents?
Thank you, Chair. Without walking into a very carefully laid trap there, Councillor Ray, environmental policies are distinct in how they're applied. I think net zero is a particular implication of an environment. Some people agree with that, some people disagree with that. Certainly the air quality management plan, which is in place, is particulates in the air, which are obviously bad for us. They're bad for us as adults, they're even worse for our children. And it's really good news that the work that's been done around the corner has eventually, after many years, succeeded in putting it in a position where we can order. I think everyone around this chamber is committed to ensuring they protect the environment. That might have slightly different forms, but I would suggest that most of us, thank you, Councillor Woodward, for that slide. Yeah, most of us in this chamber are dedicated to ensuring that we leave an environment better for our children and grandchildren. Number 23, Burntwood Leisure Centre Wetside refurbishment works contract award. 20.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from my previous intervention and looking forward to the answer to the question I asked of the Cabinet member for commissioning, there are a number of contract awards in these decisions, and I pick on this one because it being Burntwood based, where there are clearly vendors within our district who would have bid for the contract or parts of the contract. The Cabinet member mentions the procurement initiation plan as part of the process for all relevant procurement. But in the documents provided to Cabinet members on these contract award decisions, there is no mention of any procurement initiative plan. There is no mention of any review for whether we could improve local procurement with those plans. Does the leader think that that should form part of the report that comes to Cabinet for clarity? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. And I would say Stepnell, and I know you're not sort of exactly picking on Stepnell, but Stepnell have been a fantastic contractor, certainly on the Beechwood Leisure Centre. And obviously, this is one of those main contractors who predominantly will work through subcontractors, many of whom will be local businesses, but just the nature of the construction industry is that main contractors tend to be few and far between and heavily rely on subcontractors for most of their works. Do I agree that that should form part of papers? Yeah, absolutely, if that's what we should be including. We are absolutely committed to ensuring that the value of our contracts is realised within this district, and measuring it is a really good start to that. Obviously, being able to measure it and monitor it and scrutinise it is really important part for us to drive that number up over the coming years. If anything we can do to that, yeah, wholeheartedly. Number 24, the renewal lease at First Burntwood Scout Group on Eld Lane. 25, the allocation of Rural England Prosperity Fund.
Councillor Wallens.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering why you're now approving more climate change allocations when you these academies copying Reform's plans to scrap all net zero initiatives. Thank you.
Councillor Wallens, we aren't. This is the Rural England Prosperity Business Grant Fund, which isn't aligned with the net zero initiatives. I'm unsure as to the point of that question. Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pullen. So if we move forward to item 7, minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, can I call on Councillor Norman?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the meetings held on the 22nd of July and the 18th of September be received, and hopefully I'll get a seconder from committee or even anywhere else, really.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ball.
Yeah, I'm happy to second, although I wasn't at the second meeting. I'll defer to Councillor Marshall for the second meeting.
I suppose 2 seconders are better than none. So can I call on Councillor Norman to take the minutes by item number?
Thank you, Chair. Present. Item 8, apologies for absence. 9 declarations of interest. 10 minutes of the previous meeting. 11 notes from task groups. 12 health matters. 13 youth council engagement updates. Hopefully members of the scrutiny committee and hopefully share that with others. We'll get a briefing paper.
Can I turn to Councillor Booker?
Thank you, Chair. Just noting from your minutes, I look at interest with the Youth Council Engagement Update. As a member, an award that has lots of children, multiple schools, but also as a parent. I don't notice in here any specific dates in your minutes, so I'm wondering if there are some specific dates that people need to be aware of with regards to the Youth Council Engagement Update, the annual conference we offer to this council today.
As I understand it, I think I had an email talking about the 31st of October, and the idea is to spread that around. Whether all members had that, I don't know. Maybe because I was on the system email, but there is an event then. And, that's all I can tell you, really.
Councillor Bull.
Thanks for clarifying that. I just wanted to clarify that that was still the case, because as a parent of children and representing the ward who will be part of this, hopefully, and want to be, I am not aware as a parent that day. So how I'm supposed to get my children to go to it, if I'm not on the inside, hearing the whispers, hearing the noises, hearing the words, I'm not quite sure how the parents within my ward are supposed to know about it either. Thank you.
Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair.
My question was on a similar theme, actually. On this item at ONS, councillors were, I won't say critical, they had reservations about where we'd ended up with the Youth Council. But there was obviously an item saying that now there would be this engagement event. As Councillor Booker says, we've now had an update to members of overview and scrutiny that there will be this event, but the timescale does seem extremely short. I imagine it's been put in the diary then because it's half term, but I would absolutely echo what Councillor Booker says, that the word needs to be put out sooner rather than later. And I think Councillor Norman said that that briefing note will be circulated to all councillors. I think that's essential as well. Having seen it, I think I'm glad to see that it's taken on board some of the questions and comments that were made at overview and scrutiny. But I think all other members need to see it as well. And I would echo that the date needs to be promoted as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Norman.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, I'm not going to argue with the two speakers because I agree with them. Actually, it is rather short notice. We are the scrutiny committee. We're not the cabinet member or others involved in this. So, reasonably, all members will be getting it because I'll be circulating myself. That's the reason. But yeah, I mean, hopefully the cabinet members heard the concerns raised by members and take action, I think. So sympathy, but ain't my problem. 14, Lichfield District Strategy, 2050 Strategy. Scroll 10 pages. 15, the procurement strategy. Maybe. And then the work programme. At the top there is the officers confirmed.
Councillor Vaughan.
Any draft of the empty home strategy report will be brought back to ONS Buggen Cabinet. In actual fact, it will be a briefing paper, but it's in Councillor Farrell's gift as a cabinet member to deal with this. But they won't be coming to overview and scrutiny. It will be a briefing. Thank you.
Councillor Vaughan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Norman has partially answered the question I was going to ask, is when we will see this empty home strategy briefing paper, because we made, as a committee, over a year ago now, probably 18 months ago, I think, some trenchant points on what could be done and what should be done, and we're still waiting for that. So it's a vital thing that needs to come forward urgently. So I'd like to ask when that's going to be happening.
Only so I've been told, and that should be in the next week or next few days. And a little bit vague, but it's an email I had a couple of weeks ago, and so it's imminent, I would suggest. And, I'm very happy to put pressure on to the relevant people to make sure that that does happen, that all members get that. On there as well, on the work programme, the committee requested a briefing paper, and already been referred to. The minutes of the 18th of September, present. 17 apologies for absence, 18 declarations of interest, 19 minutes of the drawing board.
Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, due to a long-standing prior commitment, that is probably the first overview and scrutiny committee meeting that I missed. But I would have raised then a concern about the accuracy of the minutes, because it says here that committee believed they'd been rather critical of the proposal. Councillor Trent has already referred to this. I would suggest that that rather needs to be changed to very, because we were really quite angry about the way the whole youth engagement strategy had been handled in the past. And it is nice at the beginning to take on board some of the thoughts that we made at that point. And I'm hoping this relaunch will be a success. But I think it's been very poor performance in the past.
Councillor Norton.
Councillor Ball wasn't there, but he was in spirit. But I didn't pass on all the questions he raised with me via emails beforehand. But I did try and make sure that they were put to officers and cabinet members. As for the comment about I'm sorry, I'm old-fashioned English. I tend to underplay things. I was slightly killed last week, for example. I would say that. I wouldn't say I was murdered or anything. It's just my English way. So I'm sorry about that. But I understand his points that he makes, and I can understand why he can be a little bit annoyed by that. And it certainly was a very critical and quite a lengthy scrutiny of the youth council and delays and so on. We might be getting some more delays by the sound of it. So we'll keep on top of that. So I appreciate also comments on that. Health matters number 20. 21 notes from task groups.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't sit on this committee and I've read through these notes and I always get a little bit concerned with the use of the word hope. This health centre has been delayed over and over and over again at the detriment of Burntwood. We lost a youth centre because of it. We lost a skate park because of it. And now we've been told that it may start in 2026. And it also will take 2 years to build. So 2028 until we get a health centre. I just think it's absolutely ludicrous between the County Council and the ICB. They really do need to get their conversations back together and get this health centre moving. And it should not take 3 years. The point I'm raising it here, because that is not an issue for Lichfield District Council. We're not building a health centre. We're not putting it in place. But the councils that are and the bodies that are need to get their fingers out for our residents. My concern with this, and I don't know if it can be answered here, but I would like an answer at some point. Lichfield District Council did put 1.15 million or just over that into this project. But what project? We've read down here that there is 3 sections to this project, supposedly. So when this decision was made, when the SIL application come forward, because these plans have changed and changed and changed, did we put 1.15 million into this big 3 project? Did we do it into the 2 project? Or is it just the health centre that we're putting it in towards? Because I'd be interested, because there's a difference. 1.1 million of the big project is probably a couple of % of the value of the project. But 1.15 million, if they're just building the medical centre and nothing else, are we paying for 15% of it, 20% of it? Is that our remit? Is that the plan the Cabinet had when they made that decision? I'd be interested if that was the case. And if not, is that going to be put back and reviewed? Because it isn't the deal that we made. Thank you.
Councillor Strachan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This actually came up very briefly at the Audit Committee last night when it was confirmed that that SIL allocation is still sitting there. We want to get this delivered, and we would love to know what those who actually are holding the purse strings intend to do, because we will not hold that SIL allocation forever. We need this project to start moving. Otherwise, we've got 1.15 million tied up that we could otherwise be using for the good of this district and spending elsewhere. And so I call on those who are responsible for making those decisions to get on with it.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm surprised that we even had to do that, because the excuse that the ICB had about the health centre is that they didn't know about this change in environmental issues, which in fact they should have known, because it's been around for about 12 or 15 years before. But anyway, there you are. Yes, I'm looking forward to this. I'm waiting for some answered questions from the County Council, and the task group hopefully will pursue it further as well. So yeah, we get on. But I go back as far as 2008, I think it was, when we promised 2 health centres. We got 1 eventually. The coalition stopped at that, and various changes with the ICB, the bodies that were there beforehand. And so we still haven't got the 2nd health centre. But when in fact we lost the health centre as far as the health and wellbeing centre, which was a walk-in centre to start with, and that disappeared. So Burntwood do feel hard done by this, and we're not going to give up on that, and that's why we've got the task group, and hopefully the task group will get into the detail of that. Thank you, Chair. 22 is local government reorganisation, progress and submission. Of course, we're at the special council meeting soon. 23 LDWM West Midlands, LDWM strategic end of year review. Medium term financial strategy 24. 25
Councillor Trent.
Program.
Thank you, Chair. On this item 24, I did ask a question in ONS about community asset transfer, because the pack included a letter from the former Secretary of State. So I did ask a question, and the cabinet member responded to reassure the committee. It isn't minuted. I think it should be. Just to note that.
Councillor Norman.
I spent a lot of time going back and watching myself and others, my committee, when I come to check the minutes, and it can be a bit of a pain, but I think if that's minuted, the Councillor Defence comment there, we can perhaps follow that up as well. 26 nursery provision proposal. I'm going to go. 27 exclusion of press and public. And I must stop myself from carrying on. Apart to say 28 confidential appendices, nursery provision private. Thank you, Chair.
If there are no further questions, can we take the minutes as received? The minutes are approved. Item 8, minutes of the Planning Committee. Can I call on Councillor Checkman?
Yeah, move that the proceedings of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 21st of July 2025 where necessary approved. In the unexpected absence of Councillor Cross, I hereby say.
Thank you. I'll take the minutes by page number, month by month. So July 25, page 1. I think there are no questions. September, page 1. Page 2. If there are no questions, can I take the minutes as received and adopted? Minutes are received and adopted. Item 9, minutes of the Audit Committee. Can I call on Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Audit Committee meetings held 17th of July 2025 and the 11th of September 2025 be received and where necessary approved and adopted.
Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Warfield. Item 66, apologies for absence. Declaration of interest 67. 68, minutes of the previous meeting. 69, meeting with managers about outstanding internal audit recommendations. 70, annual Treasury Management Report. 71, for Resilience Index. 72, internal audit delivery options. 73, risk management update. 74, update from external auditors. 75, work programme. 76, internal audit progress report. 77, exclusion of press and public. 78, confidential internal audit progress report. And if we move on to the 11th of September, item 79, apologies for absence. 80, declaration of interest. 81, minutes of the previous meeting. 82, meeting with managers about outstanding internal audit recommendations. 83, review of financial procedure rules. 84, audit committee skills audit. 85, risk management update. Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. My question was on the first bullet point of that item 85, connected with cyber security. I'm pleased to see the committee grappling with that issue, and I think recent news has underlined the need to be vigilant on that, attacks on JLR and also the nursery chain in London. My question was about, it refers in the item there about further exploration of insurances. I'd be very grateful for an update on that, but I'll be guided as to whether it should be in private session or right now.
Just going to take advice on whether. We should put that back onto the agenda for a further time. Yeah, item 18. I think we're through 86, internal audit, account fraud update report. 87, work programme. So seeing that no further questions, can we take the minutes as received and adopted? That's approved. Item 10, minutes of the Regulatory and Licensing Committee. Can I call on Councillor Yates, please?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Regulatory and Licensing Committee held on the 29th of September 2025 be received, where necessary, approved and adopted. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder?
Thank you. I'd like to second those.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Mears. I'll take the minutes by item number. Item 8, apology for absence. 9, declaration of interest. 10, minutes of the previous meeting. 11, proposed diversion of public footpath number 11, part of Kerborough and Elmhurst Parish. 12, proposed diversion of public footpath number 12, part of Kerborough and Elmhurst Parish. 13, proposed diversion of public footpath number 4, part of Street Hay and Fradley Parish. Number 14, proposed diversion of public path number 1R, 1994, part of Lichfield City. Number 15, update on taxi enforcement activity since last committee meeting. Number 16, Licensing Act 2003 policy. Number 17, revocation of air quality management area. Number 18, new public spaces protection orders. 19, work programme. As there are no questions, I take the minute as received and adopted. Minutes adopted. We move on to item 11, membership of committees, panels and other appointments, including allocation of seats and appointments by political groups. Can I call on the leader of the council, Councillor Pullen?
I certainly can. Thank you, Chair. I move this report is submitted and approved by full council. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Is that a question or a... Thank you, Councillor Woodford. If there are no questions, nothing further to add, we'll now move to a vote on the proposal to agree that the Constitution be amended to reflect any changes made. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? The Constitution is amended as reflected, and the motion is passed. Is it a motion proposed? Item 12, updates to the medium-term financial strategy. Can I call on Councillor Strachan to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. And can I also take the time to welcome Councillor Stevenson to his seat, which I was remiss in doing in my earlier observations. This first of three reports is hopefully the more straightforward one, detailing some in-year changes to the medium-term financial strategy. Chair, put simply, I seek Council's consent to increase the capital expenditure budget for the Birmingham Road site by £50,000 after receiving a grant of that sum from Homes England. Finalise the budget for delivering the food festival in this year at £40,000. I congratulate officers on delivering what appears to have been a very successful food festival for a reasonable sum at virtually no notice. I also seek approval, Chair, to increase the medium-term financial strategy to adopt the projects that are identified within the financial implications section of my report. That sums £834,000 over the sum of over the period of the 4-year MTFS. The majority of those are in the first year and represent policies that are currently being spun up, with the exception of our investment into startup loans and into the Citizens Advice of South East Staffordshire, which represent the first 2 years MTFS, and the additional resource which is going into the major projects team, which we hope will exist for as long as there is a council with major projects to deliver. Finally, Chair, I seek Council's approval to transfer the localities funding budget from the capital programme into the revenue budget, and I reassure members, and I know it's already been dealt with, that in no way represents an abandonment or a reduction in the policy, or in the priority of that policy. It's simply moving it from capital to revenue, which makes it far more responsive, far more easy. I so move.
Is the proposal seconded?
Yes, Chair. I second the recommendations and reserve my rights should I want to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Councillor Strachan about the Homes England funding, which is very positive. I've talked about Homes England a number of times in this chamber and in meeting, but I know the council has good relationships with Homes England. They have a clear mandate to help with building housing, affordable social housing, regenerating town and city centres, and in particular in areas where house prices are high. So that applies to our district. And my question is, that's really good to see that £50,000 grant. But are there further plans to make further applications through Homes England? Because I know that they have a clear mandate and a significant budget.
I don't believe so, but if I become aware of any, I will report that to Councillor Ray and indeed after Councillor Woodward's intervention to the entire council. I'm sure that Councillor Pauling.
Councillor Pauling.
I can tell you right now, Councillor Strachan. Yeah, absolutely. So we are already speaking to Homes England about unlocking brownfield sites in the district. We're looking forward to moving ahead as a development partner with them on, well, one main site. As you say, yeah, we want people to be able to afford to live in Lichfield, be able to live close to their families, be able to raise their kids here. We're doing everything we can with Homes England as a partner to help them.
Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, I'm relieved to know that Councillor Stratton doesn't know everything that goes on within this council, because I'm a bit puzzled by some of the issues on page 64 under financial implication. Now, it may well be that, you know, the leave of absence, I hadn't noticed, but I'll look at the list of additional spending possibilities there. I've not heard anything about Lichfield, Trent Valley. That's my problem. Pick something up. I've heard nothing before about a new Lichfield City bid. Heard nothing about the HLF bid in Lichfield City, which has now been reduced to 0. This was in not this year's budget, last year's budget from the Labour group. Yeah, Heritage Lottery Fund bid, the Lichfield district rather than Lichfield City. That was progressed. In spite of me asking numerous times about progression for that, it was a proposal brought forward by Councillor Anne Hughes. Work has gone on with it, but why has that been removed from the list of spending commitments? It may well be. Members can perhaps tell me after the meeting, or us all after the meeting, where of those might emerge.
Yeah, only to say these are bids from within portfolios, and I don't. They make bids against the MPFS. If we can afford it, we grant those bids. I cannot give trust. Although,
if there are no further questions, we will vote on the recommendation. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? That's carried. Item 13, prudential indicators for 24-25. Can I call on Councillor Strachan?
thank you, Chair. This is the point in the year when we give the annual report on our Treasury management activity and confirm to the Council that we have assurance on all prudential indicators that we set throughout the year. So to confirm, Chair, the capital programme spend over the last financial year was £1.7 million below the budget, but that is largely due. You'll see they're identified in paragraph 3.10. There are other variances. We delivered the waste fleet early, and so that went into the previous this year rather than the next one. And there are ongoing enabling works taking place at BRS, not capital based, and so are not a project. The increase did not require reprofiling and has been spent on existing projects. Yeah, I will make the point at this stage, and it was raised very appropriately by my shadow last week when I spoke with him, that the pace of delivery on these projects must increase as we approach the point of local government reorganisation, and they are, I can reassure members, being actively managed by Star Chamber project, which is effectively an intense intervention within the officer cohort. Our capital receipts in the last financial year were below the projection, but that was largely due to a delay in the sale of Venture House, which is now completed. That completed this financial year. And we also received significant receipts last financial year of our share of return from the sale of right to buy homes, which will provide welcome assistance to the homelessness strategy budget, which has been under some. I confirm that the capital programme is on track, and there has been lower than forecast internal borrowing within that financial year. And you'll see, members, that the significant sum that's showing on finance leases in the actual is actually the waste lease financing. That is orange figure. Going to the balance sheet, you'll see the movements from the projected, which include a significantly lower than expected pension liability. That was based on the option that was taken from the most recent actuaries report. And the slippage on those above projects and the higher investment income that means that our reserve balances have been higher than we forecast. That also has led, therefore, to higher than forecast interest payments. Turning to our Treasury investments, performance has been consistently above forecast throughout the financial year, although the markets are still assessed as being volatile. The most recent assessment from our financial advisors, which I was sent yesterday, supports the approach on that, as does their support for our funds being retained within money market funds and lent to other local authorities where a list do have probably consider. Our strategic investments, you see, are all below the initial investment level. However, they are entirely covered by the volatility reserve that we set up when we first entered. It is and it remains the plan to divest investments in the coming months, and we have confirmed with the funds that we are invested with, there is no for divesting those. Turning to external borrowing, we are in the process of repaying one loan from the Public Works Loan Board, and there has been no further external borrowing within this financial year. And all of those figures and report confirm that in the financial year 2025, Lichfield District was fully compliant.
Thank you, Councillor Strachan. Is the proposal seconded? Thank you, Councillor Farrell.
Yes, Chair, happy to second it and reserve my right to speak.
Do we have any questions? Is that Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to call out one point. Item 3.10, confident communities total. There's a line there that says incubator space, Burntwood Leisure Centre, lower spend of £9,000. My recollection is that work was funded by UK Shared Prosperity Fund grant of 250, which if it wasn't spent by the end of March, had to be returned. Does this mean that the spend on Burntwood Leisure Centre was not £250,000, and have we therefore had to return £89,000 of Shared Prosperity Fund grant?
Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chair. I was reassured by my officers when I asked the question about clawback on UK SPF that there had been no clawback and that had therefore been met from a do. So, no.
If there are no further questions, we will vote on the recommendation in the report. All those in favour? I think that is carried. So the proposal is carried. Item 14, financial procedure rules, and Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chair. We do carry out an ongoing review of all of our financial policies, and we only updated this one last year when we changed some sign-off limits, but we got a report from internal audit that raised some concerns about how the council handles its inventories of equipment stock. You'll see the changes are on pages 127 and 128. They simply update how we inventorise the information that we require to place on our inventory and what and when we should review. It's effectively just making sure that everything that we think that we've got, we still have, and it's where we think. Hopefully that's straightforward.
Thank you, Councillor Strachan. Is the proposal seconded? Why? Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I second the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure members have gone through this with a fine tooth comb, but I'm just going to make a general point. It relates to page 110, 112, around that sort of area. And this may have been part of I think there's an omission in the sense that we're told what the responsibilities of the Chief Finance Officer are. Told what the leadership, but there's no sense backbench. My understanding is that the budget belongs to the whole of the line within there, so explaining the responsibility of all members for checking financial. I'd also like to know as well, we're going into the budget making process. We're already halfway through. At a timeline when discussing with opposition groups. My recollection last year, but it would be helpful to know when we can put a proposal forward, when we can have sight of what's been proposed by the controlling group, that we can make those cases, the variations of that would be helpful.
Well, this the paragraph that you refer to, Councillor Woodward, on page 110 has been, I think, part of our financial procedure as long as I can remember. I'm not sure that inserting elements on responsibilities of backbench members or shadow members necessarily lives in the financial procedure rules that govern our day-to-day operation as an authority. And of course, if a backbench member or a shadow member, or indeed any member, notices any impropriety, then of course it's the whistleblowing policy that would catch. And therefore, I think it's dealt with, but in a different policy that's not before us. And while it's perhaps not apposite to this paper, I'll certainly commit that I intend to speaking to opposition members alongside my cabinet colleagues and members of this side of the chamber in the next month. And I apologise for today. I've been mild and exam. It's a purely personal thing. I've been sitting. So I will definitely consult with you. I commit, as I would do every year.
If there are no further questions, we will vote on the recommendations set out in the report. All those in favour? I think we can say that that is carried. Moving onwards to item 15, questions submitted by members prior to the meeting. A member who has submitted a question will be able to ask one supplementary question. So first of all, can I call on Councillor Ray?
Yeah, no supplementary.
Councillor Pullen, do you want to respond? No.
Thank you, Chair. Although I strongly support having more quality childcare provision by using underused council assets in the district, but would the leader take the advice of the council's overview and scrutiny committee on the 18th of September by abandoning this proposal and carefully considering its reservations before any new proposals are brought forward?
I think this time, Councillor Pullen, there was a response. It's
a very clear question, and the advice from overview and scrutiny will always be taken on board, but it shouldn't determine what it does. I think the advice is going to be taken away and examined and worked everything that overview has said.
Question 3 is from Councillor D. Ennis for the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Leisure and Major Projects.
Yep, thank you very much. I'll assume the leader's going to answer me then, as the deputy's no longer here today. I hope he enjoys his holiday. This response is probably the most in-depth response I've had as the Shadow Cabinet Member of Major Projects, which is sad to hear if you see how far through this is. I raised this with Councillor Smith and he's assured me that that won't happen. Thank you for the detailed response, and we know there is delays always with construction works. I'd just like to know, is the leader confident that there will be no further delays and we will have a project completed in April?
Another well-laid trap by Councillor Ennis. Look, I am. Actually, I'd say yes, I am, and the reason I say that is I know that the contract has some challenges. They've taken steps to address those challenges. I happened to see the name of the project manager on an email trail who was assigned to that, and recalled that I worked with him around 15 years ago on the redevelopment of Port Dunlop by Urban Splash. It was a fantastic project. I know the project manager personally. He is, I'm saying this in public, so I should be careful what I say, but he knows what he's doing and he will move heaven and earth to make the deadline a hit. So I have absolute confidence that the cinema will be opening.
Question 4, again, a question from Councillor D. Ennis, who the Cabinet Member for High Street and Economic Development.
Yep, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for the list. And I do see that Lichfield District Council does do things to support businesses. What prompted this question for me was I sat with a new business within Burntwood that services Burntwood and Lichfield. Now, she hasn't got a business premises. She's not in the rural areas. She hasn't got a shop. And the support that she needs absolutely differs. And I know as a council, we have a broad amount of businesses within within our district. And my question was, do we do enough to support them all? And I don't think that we do. And there's a rationale to that. If you go onto Lichfield District Council's website and you simply type in business support, and as a startup business, you would think the business you go to and pay council tax to is the one that you can go to first to help with this. And it does say on here that it brings people together, except for Lichfield District Council, because there's no contact details on there for anyone at Lichfield District Council. So it brings other bodies on board with this. It also states on there that they do regular business boosting events with a lovely calendar on it, which has absolutely no business boosting events on there. So that as well was really, really good. And as a district councillor sitting there trying to plug the district council as the council of supporting businesses, specifically startup businesses, I absolutely failed. So I'm going to ask exactly the same question that I asked. Are we doing enough to support businesses and startup businesses at Lichfield District Council? Thank you.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ennis, for your question. When it comes to supporting businesses, personally, I think it'd be far better if the government had not slashed small business rates relief for hospitality businesses from 75% to 40%, more than doubling business rates. When we talk about business premises and what's available and what's not available, I think making it more expensive by increasing employers' NI, by increasing the minimum wage, there's far less to support businesses than Lichfield District Council is, in your opinion, failing to do. If anyone wants to discuss business with me and any support, my number's available. They can get in touch whenever they want. Thank you.
Question 5, a question from Councillor Trench, the Cabinet Member for Housing and Local Planning.
Thank you, Chair. I thank the Cabinet Member for his detailed reply on this. I do think it's a concern, though, that there appears to be a funding gap on this in the coming months. But I welcome the actions he's described being taken to seek other sources of funding. On that, my supplementary would just be, can members be kept updated, particularly on the 4th bullet point of his answer, regarding any external funding bids and the results of that. I'd appreciate being kept updated. Thank you.
Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. Yeah, of course, I'll definitely keep you up to date. I think it's worth noting at this point that DFGs have always been an issue to councils. In presentations to members in the last couple of years, we knew this was an oncoming issue, so it's really not a surprise to us. Earlier than we expected. Referrals this year, incidentally, have increased dramatically, really, in demand. There's an 86% jump this year. Not entirely sure the reason for that. As it stands, I'd forecast that our demand for the service is approximately £300,000 to £500,000. That's around 45 residents, to put you in context, short of our allocation. So unless we see a drop in this demand, which is probably unlikely, it's going to repeat itself next year and the year after. So our new allocation will come in for April, and we'll once again kick into gear for as long as the funding allows, really. But you know, the more we can get externally, because clearly we're not getting it from Staffordshire County Council or higher powers. You know, we just need to go out there and find more funding. But I'd happily keep you and all members involved.
Question 6. Question from Councillor Trent, the Cabinet Member for Visitor Economy, Ecology and Climate Change.
Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you for your detailed reply on this. I am pleased to hear that an annual report on progress being made is on the way. I'm also pleased that the carbon neutral dashboard will be updated, although I would query why it's data for 2023 and not for the year 2024 to 25. My supplementary, please, is you mentioned in your answer the district-wide carbon reduction plan, currently not working on that. I just wanted to ask, is that on pause or perhaps expired by the party leader? Has it been scrapped altogether?
Sylvester Hall.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much for the supplementary. And just to clarify your previous comment with regards to the timing, being able to populate the data within the carbon data dashboard is quite a manually intensive process. Councillor Rushton's also nodding because we had our meeting as shadow member for ecology and climate change recently, and we went through the whole list of things that are being done. And that's the point to this. Top part of that is what's being done now, what has been done. One of the things that was on there was with regards to the Great Imagining, and I recall Councillor Ashton also attended that particular community event over at Burntwood Leisure Centre. Of course, the invitation was out to everybody. It was a community event, that particular. So the updated information is being worked on. We're hoping that that's going to become more of an automated process, but as of yet, it isn't likely to be. So it is still quite taking a certain amount of manual intervention to be able to get that information going. One of the topics that we've discussed previously was about what are the Lichfield District assets and what we can do with that. Now, part of putting together the dashboard to start off with was looking at the entire inventory of what all the assets are and what their carbon footprint is on each of them. And unbeknownst to me, there are public toilets at Swan Island. Still haven't visited them, I have to confess, but I never knew that they were there in the first place. So populating that isn't a case of just going through the data. It was looking at every part of the inventory assets, and is a process is very much ongoing on there. With regards to the plan itself in the future, what I would do is invite everybody to look through all of the information on the Lichfield District Council web pages, which does include the reduction plan, but also all of the other activities that are going on at the moment. And all of those are being done with a significant amount of community investment as well. So people within the community that are also supporting that I'm very mindful of when we're going through and doing them, that we are also making sure that their needs.
Question 7 from Councillor Woodward to the Leader of the Council.
And thank you to the Leader for your response, which I think is a very positive response and shows that a clear majority of the members of this that want to promote cohesion across our communities rather than division. It's very easy to look at social media and think everything is disastrous in this. And that's certainly not the case. And I just picked up one social media. This gentleman said in Lichfield, after an amazing 2 years, we're moving. Amazing, friendly people, you all. Pubs, bloody brilliant and so friendly. I got to know so many people, always so polite and friendly. So thanks again, Lichfield. We'll miss you all. And I think if we take a lead from that particular person and look at the positives in Lichfield District rather than always talking down district. Do you agree?
Yes.
Question 8. A question from Councillor Rushton to the Cabinet Member for Operational Services, Parks and Waste.
Thank you to the Cabinet Member for a comprehensive reply and the commitment to the 50% recycling target. As we roll out the next phase, which does include the food waste bins, will he and officers look at updating the recycling dashboard? Because even if the figures have decreased, that might motivate residents in the district to continue the push of recycling. It's a collective responsibility for all people in the district. And will he also work with councillors across the chamber at harnessing their local schools and community knowledge to get more community groups and schools on board for this programme?
Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah. Thank you for your question and the supplementary question as well. The answer is yes, we will. We are constantly looking at ways of being more effective and more efficient at what we do with this particular topic. We're very excited about engagement throughout the youth community with schools. And on that basis, we've also got great plans to involve parish councils and ward councillors, because as you quite rightly say, it is something that it's a shared responsibility. And the more that we can communicate and get ideas, the more successful that we will be. So certainly we will do that and take your comments on board. Thank you, Chair.
Question 9. Question from Councillor Taylor, the Cabinet Member for Finance and Commissioning.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member for his detailed response. It's encouraging to see this new, more detailed commitment to supporting the local economy through our procurement policy. I look forward to having an impact on the level of our local procurement. I had a few follow-up questions, but most of these have been addressed in my previous intervention, so I'm just left with, does the Cabinet Member agree with me?
Do I agree with you with respect to whether the council is failing in procurement? No. Do I agree with you with respect to the fact that we are now on the road to improving? Yes.
Question 10 from Councillor Norman to the Leader of the Council.
I don't have a supplementary because I heard what Councillor Stratton said earlier on, and I appreciate the answer that I've got here. I'll just keep an eye on it. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Question from Councillor Norman to the Cabinet Member for Operational Services, Parks and Waste.
I'm grateful for his answer, but could he check his emails? Because I definitely had a letter. I know a lot of the people had letters from the Reform County Council candidates saying that they would increase bin collection. It was from their leader, so I can only ask him if he could check his emails again, just for me. Thank you.
Councillor Whitehouse.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Norman. I'll certainly check my emails, but I just cannot recall having the same emails that you've had. But out of interest, I will look, but not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Thank you, Chair.
And now, question 12, question from Councillor Wallens for the Cabinet Member for Housing and Local Plan.
Thank you, Chair. I love to hear all the no's saying, no, it's not my, I don't want to hear my voice and so forth. But cheers for the response anyways, Councillor Farrell. Short and sweet is how I like it. As a follow-up question to that, how many asylum seekers are currently living in the 8 HMOs that are listed in Lichfield and Burntwood?
Councillor Farrell, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Saving the best for last here, aren't we? Thank you, Councillor Wallens. Well, I hear a rumour that Staffordshire County Council are hiring a political assistant or researcher. So when they're hired, perhaps you could ask them.
Item 16. We now come to the confidential section of the agenda in which the public broadcast will cease, as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. The public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which would involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972.